Um, I'm just going to sketch and I guess talk uh, because this is mostly just, when you see something like that and you picture basically lots of axis lines and abstract shapes and things like that. And you just use the abstraction to your advantage. And in this case, you're looking down on her. And one of the first things you want to do is include the ear. And then you want to do the vertical axis line. And really for the face to look like a face, all you really need is the line of the eyebrows and the line of the eyes. And then this can be anybody. This just looks like a generalized type of head. And then you try to make it look like the actual person you're working with. It helps to draw the ear because it connects the cranium to, it basically, ears are at a crucial juncture between the, it's got the lower jaw, the cranium, everything, the neck. It's like a lot of things going on there. And when you work, you can really give the viewers a lot of information about what's going on just by where the ear is going to be. So if you just throw in like an egg shape and a couple of ears, you can save yourself time in terms of what the viewers will perceive. And the mouth can be just sort of a
This is fantastic, Helen. I just have to say that.
Thank you.
Now I'm muting myself so my house isn't too noisy.
Oh, your house is fine. But let's see, the nose, and Margaret did mention you guys want to draw noses. And this is the root of the nose, which on her doesn't really show up in this case, but I'm actually going to draw it right on this thing. And the glabella, which nobody really needs to know about. There's this
glabella with a G, but I love the word. Is that like GLA?
Yeah, that's the little skull thing right here. But the whole thing is really like the root of the nose. Technically, the root of the nose is like right here. But you definitely want to include that thing, that little downward facing plane, because it shows the viewers where the nose begins and the forehead ends. And it can be very easy to just separate things that way so that you don't have to worry about, how does the nose interact with the forehead, what's going on there. And then if you want to include more information about the nose, you always get the side plane. Obviously, you don't have to shade it. It's just there. And let's see. And then you can, if you want to make use of the shadow pattern, but it's not always necessary. It's just kind of up to you, up to whatever works for you. You can leave it linear, you can shade it, but sometimes shadow patterns can be useful. Gosh, I made her iris too big, but anyway, who cares? So the eyes, if you stick the middle of the eyes onto the main axis, you can pretty much count on the eyes at least sort of kind of being in the right spot. And also you get to show the viewers that the eyes are wrapping around the head, just like everything else. And here it's important to show this little plane break between the eyebrow or the brow ridge and the cheekbone. So that's like a crucial little thing.
Could you say that again, Helen? Oh, thanks.
Yeah, the plane break between this eyebrow and the cheekbone. And whenever you draw somebody from a 3/4 view like this one, it's really crucial to show where that is going to be, because sometimes people will put the thing up here or down here, and yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. And that's a crucial thing, because it again tells the viewers exactly what's going on with the cheekbones. And you can even follow on this one, you can really see where one cheekbone is, and they of course correspond to one another, and they would be along the same axis as everything else on the face. And let's see, the chin, of course, from this angle on her, the chin and the lower part of the face would be much, much smaller than normal. And even though she herself, the actress, has a very small, kind of a smallish lower part of the face and a large cranium, large forehead, it's still, that impression is even stronger in this case, just because you're looking down on her. Let's see. And you can play up this little plane break between the front of the forehead and the side of the forehead. And the mouth, yeah, you don't really need very much more, except just, she's got a little widow's peak. That's pretty much all you need to do. I could like do a couple of little adjustments to make the far side of the face a little smaller and make the eyes a little smaller here and there. But that gives me a kind of an idea of what she looks like. And it's basically how you'd start, or how I would start on drawing or sketching something from 3/4. I'm just going to try to figure out what's going on with her neck a little bit more, because that can be fun, and it's also useful because you're letting the viewers know what's happening with the neck. And yeah, don't be afraid of separating that far side of the nose from the cheek. It might look weird at first, but then you can always tone down that plane, that line that separates the nose from the far cheek. You can always tone it down, but it's good to put it in there just so you know it's there and you know where it is, so that you don't get confused and your nose doesn't stray too far into one direction or another. Let's see. We can do another person from the same show if you'd like, or we can just start talking about noses again.
I'd like to see another whole face, if that's okay.
Me too.
Sure. Let's see. Do you guys see this guy?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's do this. And let's see. Let's pin him down a little bit. And this is where you can actually use hair to your advantage, where sometimes hair just kind of gets in the way and it's inconvenient. So in this case, it kind of is inconvenient too, but you can use it. It's kind of a good inconvenient, where the hair allows you to create a stronger visual abstract shape based on this thing, where right now I'm not even thinking about him in terms of a head. I'm just thinking like this is kind of a triangular shape with this shape here and these shape extending here and the more shapes extending there and the whatever this is. And yeah, I'm even gonna shade it because it's like it kind of creates a cool little shape here. And then I'm gonna think about him as the head, and where is the head turning? Got a pretty big forehead. The face seems to be turning this away. The head seems to be tilted to the left a little bit, and he's turned down a little bit. Normally, like the forehead from here to here and from here to here would be the same, but here it would again be a little bit different because he's slightly foreshortened. I think he needs a little more hair up here, but that's, we can add later. And once you have this eyebrow line, you can play around with the shapes, with the actual shapes of the actual eyebrows, but it gives you a good idea of where to put everything. And then again, you stick the middle of the eyes onto the axis line. And at first, when you draw the eyes, you really don't need Like obviously you don't need all the edges of the eyes. You kind of just need where the tear ducts are going to be and the upper eyelid, where that's going to end up. And if you put them there, it lets you know, okay, did I put them far enough away from the nose, from one another? So the eyes look like they're kind of where they're supposed to be at the moment. You can include irises or not include irises, doesn't really matter. But then the nose, probably a little longer than I first anticipated. So it's probably going to be here somewhere. And with men, of course, you can count on seeing a lot stronger planes on the nose. The planes are going to be more strongly delineated. It can be sometimes more easy to draw guys than girls, just because everything is so clearly spelled out. There's no soft, well, sometimes there are, but there's fewer soft transitions and everything is very clear. So you even see the, this thing in the cartilage. And again, the facial hair can be used as just an abstract shape. To help figure out where to put the mouth, where to put everything else. And right now it doesn't quite look like him just because it looks like a generic dude. And yeah, and you can add, and that's the thing, you don't have to worry if the likeness isn't there at first, because if you follow along long enough, it will show up. Like to make him look more like this guy, you just need kind of like a bigger eye, more prominent cheekbones there. What else do we need? Might even need a bigger nose, but I'll leave it be for now. And let's see. And here's where more of the individual traits come in. Where you give him the big eye and the big eyebrow, and you start to kind of look for individual traits. I think I made his nose too short. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's see what's going on with that nose. Yeah, I think it might be too short. Let's see. Yep, there needs to be more room between the base of the nose and the eyes. And there we go. Now it's long enough. And move the mouth. And obviously you just generalize the hair and facial hair as much as possible. You don't need too much information on like what's going on with the individual stuff. Eventually, if you're really taking this farther, you would have to sort of design the hair. Design it in the sense that create a pattern for the hair, address what's going on. Raphael is very good at this. There's like all the hair is designed, but it looks natural. But for a quick study, you really don't have to do very much hair-wise. And let's see, a matching cheekbone to the other one. And the jaw, the hair. Here I'm just gonna block it in. Probably add more. The hair can be, again, a very useful shape to define the forehead. And let's see. It's probably a wig, but anyway. But you can, again, you can draw the shadows or not draw the shadows. It doesn't really matter in terms of, likeness or not likeness. It's something that can be useful, or it's something that can match your style better. And it can be more dramatic, obviously, to add some shadows. Make him look really concerned with 5 o'clock shadow. Too much.
Helen,
Again, you can,
would you tell us a little bit more about the hair? Like if you were going to design the hair, would you take a few more steps in that direction?
Sure. Here it's easy because somebody else has already designed this guy's hair for me. And, normally people's hair is just kind of like out of whack, but this is like a really nicely designed hair already. So say you take this part and you treat it as one thing, and you make sure that you treat it somewhat separately from the others. And you notice the waviness, you add some darker values here, some darker values there, to show that, okay, this is like a separate thing going on here. And the same thing with hair. On this side, you just treat it as a couple of different forms. Basically just draw it as you would a drapery, not literally, but you sort of look for large patterns of shapes. And sometimes it's very obvious, like on him, it's pretty obvious which way to go. But sometimes you just pick stuff at random when people have really disorganized hair. And it's sort of the artist's prerogative to design whichever way you want to go. And here you can just do this. And the same thing on this side. Obviously, he's got the matching curls kind of everywhere. And it's like a perfectly designed hair because you've got just enough symmetry on here, but it's asymmetrical up there. So these people really knew what they were doing. He's not, if they made him symmetrical, he would look not good. But here, this, just a little asymmetry up top is perfect. And then if you really were to take this, and the beard, obviously you don't really have, there's not much to design here. It's just treat it as a shape and look for, there's going to be the same downward facing plane that's not catching a lot of light underneath the mouth. And that's basically whether he has facial hair or does not have facial hair, that's still going to be the case. And you just shape it as, shade it as a shape at first, and then think in terms of, well, what's underneath? And there's a chin underneath. So the chin is going to give some indication of where the light is going to fall on this thing. And the beard is fairly easy in this case, just because it's pretty small. And the same thing with the mustache. You can mass it in, or you can include a couple of little hairs here and there. And if you're really going forward with completing that drawing, then you would take the shading farther. You would take the shading farther while it is still in sort of a sketch stage. And then you would take something finer and indicate individual hair strands if you really wanted to. It's not really all that necessary, but it's all depending on what you intend to do, how far you want to take it, how complex your drawing is going to be. And the important thing with the hair is also, you don't want the hair to be more finished or look like it's received more attention than the face. So if you're taking the hair someplace, you want the face to go also that way. And if you're just drawing hair and not the face, it's not gonna look right as a portrait most of the time. Sometimes it can. But basically, you just keep zeroing in on smaller and smaller elements until you get down to individual hairs. And then if you really want to, you end up drawing individual hairs when you feel that the rest of the drawing is taken really far toward completion. So that's pretty much it. Do you guys want more hair or taking a look at some other noses and things like that?
That was fun.
Thank
So
you.
fun. I was wondering if you could hold your drawing up to the camera
Oh,
a little bit. I know you might not be able to find your camera, but if you sort of tried holding
is
it.
this more like my camera?
Can you pull it down by a couple of inches and over to the right?
Yeah.
Like that, that's
Oh, this
definitely
way?
better. I feel like
To the right. The
uh,
right.
toward the smaller side of his face.
Toward your thumb. There we go.
Ah,
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to take a
Oh,
screenshot of
yeah.
it there, and then we can just kind of admire it.
thank
This
you.
is helpful because now I can just see right all the little tiny shapes.
Thank you.
That was very, very exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very cool.
Margaret, can we ask some of the questions that we've asked throughout the class? Like one of the things that Helen did talk about was men versus women, but how about old versus young? How do you make someone look a little older?
Yeah, let's find, looking for a nice older person. Is he old enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have like comparison images of like when he was younger versus when he was older. But the old people basically and the adult people, anyone from 18 to 90 is going to have the same basic structure, but the skin is gonna sag. So it all has to do with cartilage. Cartilage might get a little bit bent out of shape or larger when they're older. But mostly what you're gonna get is the wrinkles, the sagging, the upper eyelids will sag, the nasolabial folds will become more prominent. So it's mostly, we're talking about wrinkles and things just kind of drooping. Looking for another older person. Hold on. Oh, okay, 1 sec. Just looking for an older lady. There we go. Yeah, I mean, she still has the same proportions as she did when she was young, but it's all just kind of wrinkly and saggy. And she's fortunate enough to have these enormous upper eyelids that even though they're sagging, they're still not like Morgan Freeman's eyebrows. Eyelids. They're just like practically covering her eyes. But you get smaller, less full lips. You get lots of wrinkling, especially on the neck and around the eyes. That's pretty much it. There's no real structural difference, so that her skull is still the same. On some people, the chin may look a little smaller when they're older, just because of what's going on with the teeth. But again, that depends on the individual person. So if a person still has all their teeth, there's not going to be much of a difference there, except just the wrinkling. And it's, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does. But if I squinted and took away all her wrinkles, would it make her look younger?
It would, and you would also have to kind of lift upper eyelids a little bit.
I see. Yes. Okay.
And so it's a more up, everything is up.
Okay.
You know, the upper lip is up, the upper eyelids are up.
That's
I can send, you know what, later I will send Margaret some charts of this stuff, because Peck has very good charts, Roger Peck, of this exact thing that you're asking about, but I didn't print them out. So let's see, what do you guys think? Should we draw this lady or should we draw her in profile? We can do some like different angles or profiles.
I like it all.
All
And I know
right.
you have a few things for, I know you have some kids too. So,
Sure.
but I like it all. I want to see you draw everything. 'Cause then you
Right.
have yeah.
Okay, let's see. Oh, this is a handy little chart. Well, maybe it's not little enough for this setup, but this is fun. It's also Roger Peck. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it pretty well?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I find it's helpful the way he's dealt with it. We were looking at some Bridgman drawings, but Bridgman had really broken it down very small, and it was complicated to look at.
It's
So,
nice seeing the nose along with the structure, which is great.
Yeah, it's fun. Like noses are so much fun. I printed out a bunch of really big-nosed people to draw. Let's see.
but little noses are hard too.
Really? I thought everyone was. I guess little noses are. I guess little noses are cute. That's true. Okay, let's go with these two because they have different noses. Can you guys see them?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
he's kind of got a schnoz and she's got a tiny little nose. So we can try them if you want.
Sounds good. Who are they?
Okay. They're from the Crouching Dragon on, wait, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just the movie still. I forget their names. But okay, let's do the little nose, right? Little nose or big nose? I don't know if you guys want to do a profile.
I think both would be great.
All right, let's do, I guess let's do the profile first. Can you see everything? The drawing and the,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Yeah, with profiles, some people find profiles more difficult. Some people find them easier because the problem with profiles is that you don't have that extra thing to compare it to. You only have this contour and, you know, whatever's going on here. So, but of course with profiles, the positive, or what some people find to be easier, is that you don't have to worry about symmetry. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can deal without symmetry or not. And of course you can rely on the good old 3 equal thirds. And on this guy, just like on everybody else, it's going to be, you know, from here to here, from here to here, it's going to be the same. And you can just count on that.
Will you spell that out for us a little bit more? Just
Yeah.
the 333.
Yeah. The hold on. Yeah, the magic number. It's from here to here. Well, wherever his hairline is, which is probably here, and the base of the nose and the base of the chin. That's going to be about the same. So here it's going to be a little longer, probably just because he's got his mouth open. But on everybody, like any race, any adult will have the same proportions. Like she'll also have the same proportions. You know, everybody and their brother basically has the same 1, 2, 3. And like she's very much more symmetrical than he is. She's got like perfect 3s. But still, like you can count on this. Like whatever else is going on, some people will have their lower part of the face sticking out or pulling back, but this stays really consistent. It's not as consistent as like the eyes being in the middle of the head, that is 100% consistent on adults. But this is kind of like, you can't take it to the bank always, but you can take it to the bank like nine times out of 10. So with the profile, it's going to be important to pay attention to alignments. And this is not like a straight profile because a little bit of his far eyebrow is showing up, but it's close enough. So you have to pay attention to like, where is this in relationship to this? How far does his chin stick out in relationship to his nose? Stuff like that. And the more you keep it kind of straight lines and very general, the better. And I might be skimping on the chin. So I might have to move the chin a little farther forward. Yep. And the jaw is going to really help me here because this just gives the profile more context. So anytime I can get more context mixed into the profile, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take his little strap around the hair. I'm going to pretend like he's got more head up here. And I'll take the Adam's apple, like anything that helps me out to show or to basically give me extra points of reference, I'm going to go for it. And here the ear is going to be important. The ear is usually about the size of the nose. It's going to be about as long as the nose and tilted in the same direction. It's not on everybody, but on most actors, you're going to find like all these very standard proportions in a way. Not standard in a bad way, but just very symmetrical and kind of what's expected. So you can count on that. You can usually count on all the ears being just perfectly the size of the nose and perfectly tilting in the same direction. And it's not on everyone, but it's on most people. So I've got like this general head again. It kind of looks like a dude. It just doesn't yet look like this dude. And let's see. The important thing in profiles also is to keep the eye from jumping either too far away from the nose or too close to the nose. So you have to figure out where is the wing of the nostril versus the tear duct and vice versa. So you want to look for this relationship as well. Like you kind of want to check, okay, how far from here to here, and also where is this relative to this? And you might misjudge it a little bit, especially in a profile situation, but it can give you even a good guesstimate is good enough. I need another pencil. It's not the right pencil, sorry.
Can you tell us about your pencils?
Yeah, I was noticing that.
You know what? We just moved, and I couldn't find the normal things I normally use. So these are just like, these are random. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm surprised at how soft it is. That it's an 8.
I like soft pencils, and I cannot lie. Let's see. I don't know. Does this work with this light? With a little extra light?
It got too bright just now.
Oh, okay.
That's
How about?
better.
Okay, good enough.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I just randomly pulled these out of a box. I normally actually use mechanical pencils like this. They're awesome, but because I don't have, I don't know where I packed half my stuff. I still don't have access to.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So these are just like, I just found them this morning. Let's see. And for myself, I often work with charcoal, and I figured it would be easier to just use pencils for this one. So I have charcoal lying around, but not so much the graphite. But let's see. see, so he's got of course, the famous philtrum right here, this little groove, and you always want to look for the philtrum because it connects the nose to the mouth, and it gives you like a nice thing to transition to wherever you want to go. And his mouth is a little open, so we're gonna account for that. And obviously when you draw the mouth, you don't have to draw like all the edges of all the lips and stuff like that. You can wait with that. The main edges you want is like where the lips part, the philtrum, the bottom of each lip, and the exact edges you can sort out later as you keep going. He might need a bigger chin again, I'm not sure. So he's got a little bit of facial hair. Might be making his nose a little long. And let's see, he's got this interesting wide nose side plane where this thing is really wide. On some people, there's like barely any room here. On him, there's a lot. Like on her, you can tell that there's like nothing here. And on him, this thing sticks out all the way forward. And so it's a very different face.
So how do you indicate that that's so deep? You're just darkening it, just shadowing it?
Not really. It's mostly you can tell by the way the eye is sitting, like how far the eye is going to be from here, and also by how wide the nostril is going to be down here.
Okay.
And it's let's see, his bottom lip needs to go farther back. And obviously you don't want to draw individual teeth. You just kind of want to, you approach teeth pretty much the same way you approach hair. You just generalize as much as possible. And okay, and then you add a little bit of this. And it doesn't quite look like him, but I think that's because of the nostril. Let's see if we can fix that. Might need a bigger nostril here.
At this point in your career, do you ever use a ruler?
No, not for this stuff.
Okay.
And you've got the zygomatic arch going from here to here. And on him, it's pretty prominent, like it's like boom, 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 going straight down to the ear. So that's fun. And it is, of course, a lot more prominent on men. And this kind of sort of looks like him. I'm gonna leave him as is. He might need like a slightly larger forehead, a little darker hair, stuff like that. And for this kind of messy hair, you again I'm just gonna block it in as a big dark mess, which it seems to be. Just don't want to mess up the ear too much. And he might need a smaller temple. Maybe not a smaller temple, but more stuff going on his temple. And you can just kind of shade this just to show a little bit of direction of light. But again, it's not really that important. And you can go a little darker here. And good enough. And then that sort of works. Yeah, it's not the best likeness though. But then should I draw her?
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right. let's draw
Yes,
her.
can you hold him up to the
Oh,
screen
sure. Mm-hmm.
to let us linger on
Uh-huh.
the drawing a little bit?
Oops.
Is this up to the screen or
Nope.
no?
Right.
Move over.
Toward your
This-
thumb. Now
Uh-huh.
down
Down.
his chin
down,
lower
down.
and a little bit, like if you could move his chin toward your fingers. Yes, and then toward your fingers a little bit more. Perfect.
Yay.
And if we could just look at it for a minute, nice and close. Thank you. I'm just enjoying seeing the lines up close. I could see them when you made them, but this is even
This is bad.
feasting on them.
You know, I'm noticing just above the eye, just above the eyelashes, that little line that goes up really
Oh,
defines
yeah.
his eye socket.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
All right, let's see her, please.
All right, let's do. Okay. Let's do the lady. Should have to be on her own separate page.
Can you scooch the whole thing a little bit more toward what I think is the right?
There you
Is this way?
go.
And if
Mhm.
you could scooch it even more toward the right, that would be even better because we,
Okay. This way?
yeah. Then we get to see a little more of your sketchbook.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Is this gonna work?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of like leaning over my table and reaching over. But that's fine. This is the joys of Zoom. And let's see. With her, it's very like it's almost like drawing a kid. Because all of these really soft lines and the really whatchamacallit. I think I placed the eyes a little too low.
Are you going for those thirds again?
This is, I'm just doing the eyebrow line, then the eye line a little bit lower, and then divide this in two and you get where the nose is going to be.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to necessarily start out that way, but at this point it could be anybody. It could be like literally any person in the world would have this basic structure. I mean, as long as they're like an average adult. And the proportional differences generally will have to do with like smaller things, or things like how far will this stick out, how far will the nose stick out. So it's when you're drawing, like when you're a sculptor, that really is an issue. But when you're just drawing, you know, the two-dimensional stuff, it's very convenient in a way, or it's more convenient for drawing. So you've got this basic line, or this basic kind of a framework, and you go for what's happening with eyebrows. And everything on her is so small, I might have to just kind of make everything else smaller as well. And let's see. Yep, you gotta make the nose a little smaller here. And it's the philtrum. Might be giving her too much of an upper lip. And her face is getting too wide, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. making her smaller, smaller, smaller. Okay, the little nose. Yeah, there's like barely anything up here. There's no height to this nose. Like the bridge of her nose is really low up here, and it's a good contrast between them. Let's see, and then her mouth is going to be here somewhere. And then you just make the whole thing smaller. And a little philtrum. And then you just add this thing for the upper lip. And then you go and look for the downward facing plane below the bottom lip. It's formed by, the muscle that goes all around the mouth, and it forms this big thing here on some people. On some people it really doesn't, but everybody will have this little downward plane underneath the mouth, between the mouth and the chin. And let's see. Yep, she can be even smaller. And it helps when the model is so cute. It's like a cute little thing. And let's see. And the top of the head here somewhere. And I might be giving her again too much of the cheekbone here. Might have to cut it down again.
It's so nice to see that you don't get it right the first time.
Nope. Nope. Yeah. Sometimes I do, honestly, sometimes I do, but yeah, sometimes no. Even when I work with like ink or other stuff, just not like you put stuff down and immediately perfect. Nope. And let's see, we can cut this down a little. We can do this, starting to look more like sort of her, more like her sister. And her neck needs to be smaller. And I need a sharper pencil. Let's see. Let's do something with her eyes to make them more defined. And I'm figuring out like how far is the eye from the outside edge of the face. And this is something you have to do constantly when you're working on something that's not like a full frontal face. You always have to look at, what's going on. How far is the nose from the edge of the face? How far is the eye from the edge of the face? How far, like comparing this to this. And it can be more difficult to do this kind of almost a front view that's a little bit sideways than like a complete front view. And here I might have even put her eye too far away from her nose. And let's see here as well. And you want to show a little bit like of the eyeball, what's happening with the eyeball, what's happening with, this is a little bit of the orbit. And obviously on her, it's everything very soft. You can barely see what's happening there. you can't really see the skull being very prominent, but you can play up the little plane breaks on the nose if you want to. Like you can just see where the plane shifts on the cartilage and goes into downward mode and then into up. Yeah, I think this eye is like way too far. Let's see. Let's see if this will help moving it a little bit differently. Yep, this looks better. And I can't, unfortunately, I can't measure because I can't get to things to measure. But you don't necessarily have to measure all that much when you're just sketching. You can just kind of guesstimate and eyeball things. That should do it. And then if you want to add more information, you can always do that. And obviously this is an easy hairdo.
Helen, I think I remember, speaking of measuring, I feel like I remember you in grad school. Would you have told me to like measure all the time? Because you said, well, I don't measure that much now, but when I spent years measuring constantly. I might have gotten that mixed up with you just saying draw all the time. Never put down your sketchbook.
Yeah, there's a difference in whether you're sketching or you're just doing gesture drawings, or you're sketching a dog that's asleep that can walk away at any moment. Then you don't need to measure so much as you just need to draw. But then when you're drawing something that's going to take like an hour at least, or a couple of hours, it's a more formal type of drawing, then yeah, you got to measure. At first, you're basically just doing nothing but measuring. And you're just training your eye in both ways. When you're sketching and you're not measuring and you're guesstimating, you're training your eye to guess and to go with the flow. And then when you're doing something more formal, you're training your eye. You're training your eye to measure without going through the motions of measuring. So it's like both. You do both basically.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like her sister or cousin, and that's good enough. And if you spend more time with it, obviously you can make it more like her. You can adjust things, you can change things. But for sketchy, this will do, as long as you have the basic stuff going on. And again, this applies across the world. This is so weird, this whole three-part thing. It's really strange. Like you take completely different faces and you find the same thing on top of everyone. So it's it's a very fun, a very cool thing. And let's see what else. What would you guys like to do in terms of like old people, young people, small
Can you
noses?
do an older person and more of a kid?
Sure.
What about everybody else? Do other people have special requests?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
just
kids. I that old and kid was good. Yeah. Let's do Morgan Freeman.
All right.
could we start with a kid? I'm a little concerned because it's 11:32. Can we make sure we get in a kid and Morgan Friedman?
Sure. Yeah, we can do a kid, and we can do Morgan Freeman. So I'm just looking for the kid. The kid.
Helen, do you have until noon?
Yeah, of course.
This is great.
Okay, I don't have a very good picture of kids, but I do have one. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Ah, okay. So we'll just do E.T. Can you see them?
Oh, that's great.
Oh my
Perfect.
gosh.
Okay, and let's see.
How young they were.
Yeah, very, very cute. Let's see. So on kids, basically, the key is the younger the kid, the bigger the cranium, and the smaller is everything else.
Okay.
And the eyes are actually the same size on the children and adults. They're all 1 inch in diameter, but the eyeballs look so much bigger on kids just because the rest of their heads is so small. So the main thing with the child is you just give them an enormous cranium and tiny face, and you're good to go. Let's see. And I'm drawing a little girl. And it's not going to be the same proportions as an adult, of course.
And we know she's a girl, but how do you make her a girl?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't think about it. You
Okay.
just draw what's there. You draw what's there, and most of the time, that's going to land you with the right proportions. But on really little kids, sometimes they kind of look. I mean, this could be a girl.
Yes.
So sometimes they don't really look all that different from one another.
Okay.
So on like infants and like little, really tiny kids, I wouldn't worry about it. But on older kids, boys, even like at like 12 or something, they already start having sharper,
Lower lines.
like stronger skull here, stronger bones here. Although some girls do too. So yeah, boys and girls are kind of very similar. And girls are generally softer. They just generally have not so much softer in terms of fat, but they have softer transitions on their skulls. And you don't have, like if you look at female skull versus a male skull, you'll have just softer edges. And you just give them the big eyes and the tiny nose. And here you don't have to worry about the eyes becoming too large because they are just very large. It's like all the same features on an adult, but in a different proportional system. And the chins are going to be very small. And of course, on a baby, this would be like times 100 when there's just all head. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about right. At least it looks like a kid. That's all
I
we
just
need.
realized that these are strange because they're lit from below and
Yep.
above.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's like, obviously, lighting can be tricky sometimes. Depends, kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're going to be lighting things for yourself, you're not going to go with this lighting on purpose, but you will have to deal with any kind of lighting when you're sketching. like if you're just randomly sketching someone at a random place, then lighting just kind of, you take it as it comes. But yeah, this is not good lighting. This is kind of wanted to find familiar faces. That was all I could come up with.
It's a great idea.
So you get this, and you can show that the light is coming from below by adding a little shadow on the upward facing planes, which is sort of a different thing from what you normally would do. Normally you assume that the light will be coming in the opposite direction, but here you just go with this weird underlighting. Yeah, this could be a boy or a girl. As long as it is the age that it's supposed to be, you're good. And then if you want to make it a boy, you can just add boy stuff. You can add a baseball cap to it and change the hair. So that's pretty much, and you've got, obviously you're going to have a lot more fat on kids. So a lot of this, a lot of the skull things that you see on adults, they're just not even going to be showing up. So you kind of have to assume that the stuff is there, but it's just like barely there. You know, the brow ridge barely shows up even on boys. And what else? Yeah, so you just look for softer transitions for everything. But don't be afraid to shade or add dark values. I'm sorry?
Could you draw her hat too? Because I feel like
Oh,
that's
sure.
what I would have a hard time with.
Let's see, her hat. Okay. And I think that's part of her hat. You probably want to emphasize the front edge of the visor just to pull it forward. That shows that it's ahead of everything. And you want to add a shadow underneath because there's always going to be darker around the hat. And let's see, darker shadow here, and a little bit of, just a little bit of shadows just to kind of show that it's shaped. It's not just like a weird mushroom thing on her head. And that's, I would actually kind of leave it at that and maybe show that there's like a little seam in it or something to show the direction, how things going. And I would probably leave it be.
I interrupted you about the hat. Thank you for that. It's masterful. But when I interrupted, you were just saying, don't be afraid to shade, which I would totally be afraid to shade.
Yeah, like just don't, even if, a lot of the time when somebody has delicate features or it's a child, people tend to kind of hold off on the shading and make things lighter. And it's really not necessary. As long as you avoid like super sharp edges, like the sharp edges is what you don't want. You don't want like sharp edges on the lips or sharp edges here and there, but you can have dark values as long as you don't sharpen things up. Say if a man was lit up from this angle, there would be sharp edges. There would be sharp edges here and sharp edges there. But on a little girl or a young woman, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have a lot of sharp edges. So you can shade. You just want to keep everything soft. You don't have to make it any lighter than it is. You can make it as dark as it is, as dark as you like, as long as you control kind of the contrast level and the edges, and it's still going to look soft with or without the darker stuff. And obviously you normally would want to shade the eyeballs, but here they're so small I can't get to them. And let's see. Yeah, you can just go crazy with the go crazy with the shading if you want. And like if I was drawing this boy, I would go like way dark on here. And yeah, that's fine. Like what you don't want is just sharp stuff.
Will you hold this one up to the camera?
Is this right?
Go up higher. Up higher.
Not so much higher toward the camera, but could you move the top of her head, not that direction, the other direction? Yes, that direction.
There.
Yes.
Wow, look at that.
Could you move it all over to the right? Nope, that's too high. That's
There, that's good.
That's it.
Wow, look at that.
Look at that.
Mm.
fantastic.
Wow.
Okay, old people.
Yes, please.
All right. Old people. It's not even all that old, at least not in this picture.
I was thinking, well, just more like second half of life.
Yeah. Let's see.
Can you move him and your sketchbook up? Yeah, that's great.
This way? Okay. One sec. Well, he's fun because that is a proper nose.
Now, what kind of pencil do you have now?
Actually, it's just like a random thing. It's extra black General's layout.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever used it before, but it's just here, so I'm gonna go for it.
And you sharpen them with a knife?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see. Can't see him very well. Ooh, do you mind if I go this way?
Fine, that's
That
better.
works. That's great.
That's good.
Because I can't actually get to this side of the page. If okay, this is better. Okay, so in this case again, I'm thinking of the whole thing because I need to fit this big head onto this onto the sketch pad, and a lot of the time when somebody just has a big head, even though it's a small picture of him, you kind of just automatically go big because you know the guy's got a big head, and you kind of end up running off the page with the whole thing. So I'm trying to look for kind of the overall shape of the whole thing, so I don't make that boo-boo.
So you've included the hair when you've done the overall thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a hair can be helpful. It's like ultimately it's not important structurally, but it can be helpful when you're planning things out. It can be helpful for composition, for how to fit stuff on the page, things like that. So you basically just use whatever you've got. Like you use this hand, even though I don't plan on actually drawing the hand very well, but I'm just gonna use it. And you can use the shoulders because the shoulders will tell you like, oh, where is the bottom of the nose? Where is the bottom of the ear? So you can use all that stuff for reference that you don't really need. Even the unimportant stuff can be handy. So you basically just work with what you've got. And let's see. Now his proportions are interesting. He's got kind of a narrow forehead here. And then the axis line is going to be here somewhere. And his nose is most likely going to be right between the eyebrows and the chin.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's here, no, he's seen a little from above, but nothing out of the ordinary. let's see, there is the old glabella, root of the nose, and he's got a convenient little wrinkle at the root of the nose, which you can just use to find everything. And then now his proportions are going to be different in terms of how wide is the base of his nose. And you know, that's really, really wide. On most people, it's much more narrow. But this distance and this distance is still going to be the same as on everyone else. It's just his cartilage is different. Let's see. And he's going to have the mouth and the philtrum. And I might have to add a little more chin as we go. But this is the basic stuff. And let's see, obviously the middle of the eyes is going to be always in the middle of the head. So I'm not really that concerned about it here, but that's just kind of a good thing. Like A is going to be equal B on everybody. So the tear ducts go in the middle of the head on everybody, well, except for the children, where on children, the eyes are much lower than the middle of the head. On everyone else, they're precisely at the middle of the head. And his tear ducts are going to be like way closer to the nose than the wings of his nostrils. Like these things are just going wee, but the tear ducts are closer. And let's see. And if he was younger, he'd probably have like less stuff hanging above his eyes. But since he's older, he's got hanging stuff above his eyes, which is fine. Let's see. And you'll have to, when you draw older people, you do have to include the wrinkles because otherwise it's just not going to look like them. And here he's got a little more of a wrinkling just because he's smiling a little. And because it's a natural smile, you've got a little more of a wrinkly thing here. You're going to have the wrinkliness is going to be even more accentuated just because he's smiling, even though he's not smiling a lot. And the old nasolabial fold, which you don't have to remember. Nobody really needs to know what that name is, but it's just the fold between the nose and the mouth. And that thing's going to be big, and especially big when you're either old or you're smiling. It's going to be more pronounced unless you've botoxed yourself like crazy. And let's see, and he didn't, thank God. So it always looks worse on men than women. Like women just kind of get away with it more. Let's see. And he fortunately just left his face as is, which is good for us because we can see like everything hanging off his skull. And on him, it feels like the nasal bone is probably here somewhere, just like it is on everybody. But then the cartilage is different from like what most average people would have. Like his cartilage just does what it wants. It kind of just goes and gets really large and larger than on most people, except maybe Ron Perlman. And so that's why it's so fun, because he's not your average nose, which is good.
I'm noticing how you hold your pencil way down near the lid.
Mhm. That's because I'm crouching over the desk.
Oh,
Normally it would be like this more.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's small, and I'm kind of like half my head is above my iPad, and I'm peeking underneath.
Oh,
Sorry, guys.
Is it kind
No.
of like you're drawing
Yeah.
with one hand behind your back?
Yeah.
Not quite like that, but it's like a little unusual. But this is fun. He's fun to draw, and some people are just very photogenic, and it's a real thing. Like some people are easier to draw than others, and for whatever reason, it's kind of unfair, but people who look good on photographs also tend to be easier to draw. And it's weird, but it has to do with symmetry. And it's like people who don't look good on photographs, they are the more likely people to actually want a portrait of themselves done. But it's actually, yeah. And it's like that's more difficult to do, and you end up with not as good a portrait either. So it's kind of it's a strange thing that I don't know what it has to do with. Like, I don't know why this guy is photogenic. Who knows? He's got the same basic proportions as everyone else.
That nose is so good.
I know, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes on forever, and it's so much fun. Like, it's better than one of those David casts, like when you draw noses in academia, you get to draw a lot of casts of Michelangelo's David. And he's just got like, a very standard kind of nose, like a very normal, standard, average kind of nose, even though it's pretty big. But this guy's nose, that's like way cooler. Very interesting. I did print out a Barbara Streisand, but I think his nose is actually even more interesting. Let's see. I know it's funny because like when you talk about people's noses and stuff, when you're not an artist, you might just like offend people. And it's funny when you're so used to drawing portraits, you will sometimes like find yourself like almost holding yourself back from remarking like, oh, your ears are not quite symmetrical, or like, oh, look at that chin, your chin is smaller than the average. It's just it's funny. I was just trying to explain to my husband the other day. We were in front of a mirror, and I was talking like, oh yeah, one side of my mouth is like way lower than the other, and one of my eyelids totally droops, and my eye shapes is completely out of whack. And he was looking at me like I was crazy.
Helen, is there any standard for the way that most people's eyes are both different?
Yeah, they're usually just not matching. Like one eye is usually higher than the other. Some people are slightly more symmetrical than others. But usually, like if you look at yourself in two mirrors, you will find, okay, something's off here. Like one side of the mouth will usually droop. The chin will be asymmetrical. There will be some weird thing about the eye where one eye will be like higher or lower. On some people, it's very pronounced. Remember that show with, oh God, the girl on 90210?
I remember that one.
The TV show with like kids in high school. This is in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, I forget her name, but like one of her eyes is so far lower than the other. And she's still pretty. She's still very attractive, but it's just so obvious on her. Like it's really obvious on some people and completely hidden on others. But he doesn't seem to have a very pronounced difference. But I'm sure if you like really took a hard look, there would be some asymmetry. Very few people are completely symmetrical.
I feel like often I'll notice in eyes, and I certainly know it in my own face, that you'll see more of the top lid of one eye,
Mhm. Yeah,
lower on one eye than the other. This sort of
yeah, that happens a lot. I don't know why. Who knows? I really have no clue.
I
But
think with that example, the person that comes to mind, and maybe it's really exaggerated, but Tom York from Radiohead. Do you remember that guy?
no, I don't know what he looks like. I remember the band. I just don't remember the guy.
One eye is more closed than the other.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that's like a normal human thing. Everybody's got.
The story. You gonna leave me
Do
a
you
list?
find it more difficult to draw people that you know?
I need that.
Not
No.
really. No, it depends.
That is.
Uh,
This is so good.
it's
You still just see them as shapes?
yep.
Wow.
Yep. I can reduce them to shapes. But I can see how it would be. I can see how it would be a little weirder to like look at somebody and think about their like, think about their zygoma and like, honey, let me take a look at your orbicularosaurus. Is it pronounced? Yeah, it's a little weird. But,
Bless you.
Thank you.
It's now it's 12 o'clock.
okay, I can let you guys go.
I hate to. Will you hold this one up? It's pretty close, but could you hold? Actually, I'm going to do a couple of screenshots. Could you hold it a little bit closer to the screen, just a bit, because it's pretty close.
So good.
Thank you. Is this the right?
Down a little bit, and then toward your hand by a couple of inches. Maybe
Wow.
one more inch.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
This away? Oops.
Perfect.
perfect.
Wow.
Wow, you really got him.
Thank you. He's easy to draw. He's so much fun.
And then, gosh, I hate to start. I could watch you like all day long. But I had a question. Can you come back? Or can you see us?
Let's see. Let's find out. I think, yeah, now I can. Yay! Hey, Margaret.
Hi. Hi. We've been here all the time. I had a question about the glabella. Is this the glabella right here?
Yep.
And,
Yep.
The labella.
Yeah.
So that it's a down plane, and that's what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It's like you follow your forehead on your own forehead. You can just go like boom.
But it depends on who you are, doesn't it, as to how deep that is?
Yeah. Some people like barely have it.
Yeah.
And this is the Philtrum, P-H-I-L,
Yeah.
Philtrum.
Yeah.
That's right there. We can't see it here because it's a skin thing.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't have my Zoom all figured out.
No,
This is,
no, it
Oh,
was
that's
wonderful. I'm
fine.
like, for me, it's the sadness of transition. Like, I don't want to let you go. But we end at 12. So well, I guess we have to go, but
I'll let you guys go. It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Gold stars.
thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret.
That was